886 area code. You're calling from 886. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
What's up, Michael? This is Chris from Taiwan.
Hey, what's going on, Chris? What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, that Kasparian Brooks joint diss tracks was choice. I really enjoyed that.
It was. It made. If Dave had one, his soul would burn slow.
So I want to ask you and Jamie and Matt about
And
UBI,
Brendan.
Universal Basic
Brendan,
Income.
include
And
Brendan.
Brendan,
God
sorry.
damn it! How dare you?
I'm sorry, he doesn't speak up that often,
Yeah,
so
but
I
he's a
slipped my mind.
smart
Brendan, I
young
love you. I
man.
apologize.
All right, go ahead. UBI.
Yeah. Specifically, the left-wing criticisms of universal basic income.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the most obvious criticism is, well, this is not a panacea. This is not going to fundamentally restructure, the power hierarchy in society.
Mm-hmm.
And if we passed UBI tomorrow, the same people would still be employers, and the same people would still be employees, and the same people would still be creditors and debtors, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the left-wing criticism of how we shouldn't fetishize universal basic income, but is there any left-wing criticism that says that we shouldn't do it?
I'll explain. Did you? I don't know if you went through. I'll just say real quick, 2 quick points. Actually, David Griscom had a great UBI rant on last night's TMBS, and I think that.
Well, I actually listened to that, but did he say that we shouldn't do it, or did he just say that?
Yeah, well,
go continue. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess that to me is kind of the point, right? I just think that UBI. Look at where UBI is clustering in modern politics, right? The people who have like a social democratic electoral agenda are talking about single payer, social housing option, postal banking, job guarantee, policies like that. UBI is primarily emanating from Silicon Valley, from various technocrats. Now, it's been implemented successfully. Actually, Lula da Silva is currently political prisoner in Brazil.
Right.
Family Bolsa was a really successful program. It's being totally dismantled right now as part of an austerity regime, which is totally clawing back the
among a lot of other things.
Among a lot of other things. So I just think you have to, if we're just blue skying it, I got to say, if I'm just blue skying, I don't know if, maybe we're post-currency in my utopia, right? I don't know. So there could be a scenario, and I also did see yesterday that apparently McDougal, who's shadow chancellor secretary, and Corbyn's Labor Party is going to test pilot some type of UBI idea. That's cool, because whatever they cook up, I trust. But in general, and particularly in the United States, any UBI proposal is either going to be a stealth attack on the rest of the welfare state, which would leave people massively in the hole. It would continue a sort of system of kind of indirect subsidization of private enterprise. And it's also, I think, a consensus point that the new oligarchs and technocrats are like, this is how we have a pressure valve. And look, I'm not an accelerationist. I'm very materially focused. I do not believe in increasing human suffering for a potential future result at all, period, ever. But I am also really concerned about essentially people just thinking okay, this is what we can do. A bunch of people will be unemployed or underemployed or permanent underclass, and we can kick them a little change. That's what they have in mind.
Okay,
it's a dangerous policy from where it's coming from.
Let me rephrase the question then.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a good left-wing argument against, say, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders adding universal basic income as one of their policy proposals? Because, like you said, Corbyn and the Labor Party are doing it.
I just don't see they've already. I mean, not innately, but there's so many. I don't know. There's so many other policy areas that they need to push out. First, Connie Ella Ng is totally ahead of the curve on social housing. I want Cortez to sign up
Yeah.
on that and Bernie to
Definitely.
sign up on that. Like, decommodifying housing is a much bigger deal. Look, if they all wanted to say, in addition to everything else, we should give everybody a direct transfer of $3,000 a month, I have no problem with that. But it's not fundamental, and most of the people that are promoting it are super dangerous bad faith actors in current modern politics. And even where it has been successful,
No, that's definitely true.
even historically, why was Michael Bloomberg so curious about what was happening in Brazil? He implemented a program like this in New York City, or piloted one. So I'm very wary of it.
It is a double-edged sword, though, right? Because it's very inspiring to socialists for a number of different reasons that are obvious. You know, the idea that you could uncouple selling your labor power from your survival. That is, I mean, that's the goal, right? I do think it would be a temporary solution at best that would be probably more vulnerable to destruction by an opposition party once they took control. Like, the welfare state is a lot harder to destroy. And I think that's why, Sam was talking about that the other day, too.
It's what literally is happening in Brazil.
He thinks it's dangerous.
And I would just add, I also think we need to decouple work from income, but there's also there are innate psychological rewards to contributing in a purposeful way. That should be decoupled from work. But just the idea that you're going to warehouse people and say, you're useless, you're going to be a dreg of capitalism, but here's some change. I don't think that's healthy either.
What do you think the dividing line is between work that is alienating and work that's not?
I think the dividing, I don't take your question. What do you mean?
Like, the idea that you could feel good about contributing in a productive way to society. I agree that's how work is going to get done post-capitalism. But as long as you're still selling your labor power so you can keep on living, it might be, and you don't get the products of your labor, you're doing care work.
I understand that. That's very, and it's true, but it's very abstract. So I'm saying even in Jeremy Rifkin in The End of Work suggested, and a universal UBI and a job guarantee could be hybridized in the sense of, he said, millions of people that capitalism has discarded, and then millions of social, environmental, and cultural problems that people's human ingenuity and talent could meet. People could be paid to be community mentors. They could be paid to be artists. They could be paid to rebuild bridges.
Yeah, New Deal, we had the artist stuff and the citizens conversation. Yeah. I mean, they were racist, but...
Yes, but that was beautiful.
It was good.
Oh,
yeah.
I agree that it would be a lot better than what we have now, but still not as good as where we want to go.
Well, that's true of all these conversations.
As a sort of incremental reform, and what some people would view as a non-reformist reform, I think the jury's still out on that. It's certainly an inspiring idea, but we have to be careful of all the right-wing libertarians who are tantalized by it.
There's one watchword, and Michael mentioned it. It's decommodification, right? You need to decommodify lots of the thing, because the way libertarians are, they want to commodify everything.
Precisely.
They want to give you money so you can commodify more. It's really not about UBI or jobs guarantee. It's about how much is commodified. And I guess the secondary thing to look at is the transfer amount given to everybody enough to start cracking away at capital disparities in wealth and income?
Precisely.
And if it is, then it's good, and if it's not, then it's not.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Right, sure. If somebody said...
The devil's in the details, right?
Well, yeah, it's it isn't even... I don't think this is the right way to go, but I think if somebody said, everybody in the United States is going to make $500,000 a year, and that's going to become UBI is going to be a direct the Amazon Bezos principle is going to be applied across the United States, so everybody's automatically upper middle class, and we make a dent in income inequality. Well, okay, that's an interesting.
It would be
argument.
supercharged capitalism.
Yeah,
imagine that, right? Because everybody you'd have.
That's also true.
The velocity of money.
Then we would just be a
that.
shareholder society, and everybody would be an affluent consumer, and that would not be nice for the global supply chain.
Right.
And that would not be much global solidarity, but it certainly would be a lot more provocative than, UBI conversations are Silicon Valley people sitting around being like, you could give people direct, credit transfers through Amazon Prime, and maybe that will make them bitch less about the fact that they can't live in San Francisco anymore.
Well, the amount is very important. I mean,
Well,
I guess, love the idea.
I guess a big problem with a lot of these conversations is that we are constantly talking about redistribution. And like, really, we need to make sure that the income and wealth is distributed fairly in the first place.
Pre-distribution.
So that we don't need to redistribute it.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Indeed.
I also
Yeah.
love the idea of the UBI as a sort of universal strike fund. And
Ooh,
I
that's
want to
cool.
learn more about it for sure.